Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are really cracking the organizational code.
A huge topic.
We're doing a deep dive into designing organizational structure.
Right. And it might sound a bit, abstract.
Yeah.
But this is the absolute framework that controls, coordinates, and motivates everyone inside a business.
It really is. I mean, if you want to know why one company can pivot in 3 months and another takes 3 years to do the same thing.
You look at their structure, it's almost always the answer.
Exactly. And we're going beyond just the org chart here. Structure defines authority, it sets up the communication channels, and it really, really shapes the culture.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission today is pretty simple. We want to give you the core vocabulary and the main models so you can look at any organization and really assess how it's built to operate.
Let's do it. We should probably start with the basic atoms, the 6 core building blocks you need to design any structure at all.
Okay, let's kick off with the first one. Work specialization. It's also known as the division of labor. This sounds like a pure efficiency play.
It is. It's the ultimate pursuit of efficiency. It's basically the degree to which you subdivide big tasks into smaller, separate jobs.
So the idea is deep expertise.
Deep expertise and speed. The trade-off, though, is engagement and flexibility. If your only job is to tighten one specific bolt, you get very fast at it, but you completely lose the big picture.
And we see that deep specialization in massive industrial companies. Take Saudi Aramco, for example.
Perfect case.
They have incredibly high work specialization. They don't just have engineers. They have entire departments for exploration, for drilling, for refining.
And even within those, an engineer might focus on one specific geological formation for years. That's the level of depth we're talking about.
But once you split up all the work, you have to put it back together.
Exactly. And the risk is that nobody talks to each other. Which brings us to block number 2, departmentalization.
This is the grouping mechanism.
It's how you group those specialized jobs. You can do it by function, all the accountants together, or by product, customer, even by geography.
And for geography, a great example comes from the airline industry, right?
Yeah, look at Gulf Air. They use geographic departmentalization really effectively. They have regional offices for the Middle East, for Europe, for Asia.
And each one is like its own little self-contained unit.
Pretty much. They manage the routes, the customer service, the operations, everything specific to that market. Because what works in London is not what works in Manila.
Okay, so now let's talk about the vertical aspect, the element of control, chain of command.
This is the classic one. It's that unbroken line of authority from the very top of the organization right down to the bottom. It just clarifies who reports to whom.
No confusion.
Zero. It's the backbone of accountability.
You see this, of course, in the financial sector where risk is everything. A place like the National Bank of Bahrain has an absolutely rigid chain of command.
It has to.
It flows from the board to the CEO, down through executives, right to the branch tellers. There's no ambiguity about who has the final sign-off.
And that hierarchy links directly to our 4th element, span of control.
Which is really just about how many people a manager can effectively supervise.
That's it. And your choice here really shapes the entire organization. You could have a narrow span or a wide one.
So narrow span, maybe managing 3 to 6 people, lets you supervise really closely, maybe too closely.
Micromanage, yeah.
But it means you need a lot of managers, so the organization gets very tall with lots of layers.
Precisely. The alternative is a wide span of control. A manager has, say, 10 or more subordinates.
Which forces them to give up control.
It forces autonomy. The manager simply can't oversee everyone that closely. And that gives you a flat organization, which is usually faster for communication.
Okay, next up is the big power question. Centralization versus decentralization. Where do decisions actually get made?
Right. Centralization means the key decision-making is concentrated way up at the top. We see this a lot in the GCC, especially with successful family-owned businesses.
Like Alpha Tame Group.
A great example. The founding family or the board wants to maintain that core vision and culture, so major decisions have to go all the way to the top for approval.
So centralization gives you control, it preserves the culture, but I imagine it slows things down.
It can, absolutely. Which is why some companies choose decentralization. They push the decision-making authority down to lower-level managers.
People closer to the action.
Exactly. The Bahrain Bourse, for instance, allows its department heads to make a lot of their own operational decisions about trading infrastructure. It lets them react to the market much faster, even if the grand strategy is still set at the top.
And our last building block, formalization. I always think of this one as the company rulebook.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's the degree to which jobs are standardized. High formalization means there are rules and procedures for everything.
If a customer says X, you must respond with Y.
Right. There's very little room for employee discretion. Low formalization is the opposite, lots of autonomy.
And the textbook example of high formalization is always the public sector.
Almost always. Government bodies, like the Bahrain Civil Service Bureau, operate with extremely high formalization. Strict regulations, procedural manuals. It's all designed for consistency and impartiality.
So those are the 6 pieces of the puzzle.
And now comes the interesting part, how you actually stack those blocks to create the common organizational structures we see every day.
Let's pivot to the models then. And it seems like there's always a big trade-off you have to make.
Always. You're constantly balancing efficiency against flexibility. You can't maximize both.
So let's start with the most common one, the one that is all about efficiency, the functional structure.
This is where you group people by their skills. You have a marketing department, an HR department, a finance department. The big advantage here is economies of scale.
Like at Aluminium Bahrain, Alba.
Exactly. They have distinct departments for smelting operations, for maintenance, and so on. You get incredible depth of expertise, and you don't duplicate staff.
But we've all worked in a functional silo, haven't we? That's the downside.
Oh, absolutely.
That moment you realize the finance team and the operations team have completely different goals and haven't really spoken in 6 months.
And that breakdown is exactly what pushes a company to consider the next model, the divisional structure.
So you switch when the silos start to hurt more than they help.
Right. In a divisional structure, you regroup the company, but this time around, a product, or a customer segment, or geography. Each division basically becomes its own mini company.
They often have their own internal departments, like their own marketing team.
They do. Look at a huge company like the Emirates Group. It's just too complex for one functional structure.
So they have divisions.
They separate Emirates Airline, Donata for ground handling, and Emirates Sky Cargo. Each is a distinct division with its own goals, tailored to its own market.
Batelco does something similar but based on customers, right?
Yes, they have a consumer division, an enterprise division, a wholesale division. It lets them focus completely on the unique needs of each group.
Okay, so that solves the silo problem because each division is responsible for its own results. But you lose that pure efficiency, I guess. You're duplicating roles.
You are. You lose economies of scale when every division has its own small HR team. But the speed you gain in market response is often worth it.
Now for the one that gets really complex, the matrix structure. This one tries to have its cake and eat it too.
It does. It tries to get the efficiency of a functional structure and the flexibility of a divisional one. It does this by creating a system of dual reporting.
Two bosses. That just sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It often is. An employee reports to their functional manager, say the head of engineering, and they report to a project manager.
So what's the point? Why create that confusion?
Because it's incredibly flexible for resource allocation. You can pull specialists onto complex projects as needed without permanently moving them from their home department.
The Bahrain International Airport Modernization Project is a good real-world example of this.
A perfect one. You have logistics experts, IT specialists, construction managers, all working across different project teams, but they're still anchored in their functional departments.
But how do you stop them from getting conflicting orders from their two managers?
You need very sophisticated management and a culture of constant open communication. The failure rate for matrix structures is actually pretty high, but when they work, they're incredibly agile.
And finally, we have the structures that are built for pure agility, team-based and network models.
These are much flatter. A team-based structure just organizes work around cross-functional teams, reducing the need for a deep hierarchy. We see Tamkeen do this, organizing around teams for specific national initiatives.
And the ultimate flat structure is the network structure, or virtual organization.
Right, this is basically strategic outsourcing. You have a small core company that handles the key strategic stuff, but outsources almost everything else, manufacturing, IT, payroll.
We see this all the time with startups.
All the time. Especially in hubs like Dubai Internet City or Bahrain FinTech Bay. It lets you be incredibly fast and keeps overhead low, but you're completely reliant on your partners.
Okay, we have the building blocks, we have the models, but choosing a structure isn't just an abstract design choice. It has to fit the situation.
100%. It's a contextual problem.
So what are the big factors that push an organization toward one model over another?
There's one golden rule above all else. Structure must follow strategy.
Structure follows strategy.
If your company's strategy is all about innovation, you absolutely need a flexible organic structure, a matrix or team-based model. If your strategy is cost minimization, being the cheapest, you need a controlled, standardized, mechanistic structure.
So if you're trying to be the next big tech innovator, a functional structure will kill you. But if you're a utility company, it's probably perfect.
Precisely. And then two other big factors are organizational size. Bigger companies just naturally need more formalization and specialization, and the environment.
Meaning how stable or unstable the market is.
Exactly. Stable environments are fine for mechanistic structures, but dynamic, fast-changing environments demand that organic flexibility to survive.
And that point about dynamic environments feels very relevant right now, especially for the GCC region, which is going through huge economic changes.
It is. And we're seeing some major structural shifts happening right now because of it.
What are the big trends you're seeing play out?
I'd say there are four fundamental transformations. First is digital transformation. It's everywhere.
And technology is flattening things out.
Fundamentally, look at Bahrain's Information and E-Government Authority, the IGA. They've built digital platforms that force departments to collaborate, effectively bypassing the old, slow approval layers. The tech itself is demanding a shorter chain of command.
So the old formal processes are being broken by digital tools. What about policy influences?
That's the second big trend. Nationalization programs like Saudization or Bahrainization. These aren't just about hiring numbers, they have a structural impact.
Yes.
Organizations are having to create entirely new, dedicated departments focused just on national talent development, on succession planning, on training. It's adding a new specialized unit to their existing structures.
Right. And the third shift is a direct response to the big economic diversification goals across the whole region.
You can't use a structure built for an oil economy to compete in, say, fintech or tourism. Organizations have to restructure.
So you build the structure to match the new strategy.
Look at the Bahrain Economic Development Board, the EDB. They literally restructured to create specialized units to attract investment in their priority sectors, financial services, ICT, tourism.
And what's the final big transformation?
It's an internal one
Yeah.
that's critical. The professionalization of family businesses.
Moving away from that traditional, highly centralized model.
Exactly. That model worked for control, but to scale and compete globally, they're moving toward more professional, decentralized structures. They're setting up formal boards, bringing in non-family executives into key roles. It's a fundamental shift away from centralization.
What an amazing overview. So for you listening, the biggest takeaway here is that structure is never, ever static. It's a constant balancing act.
A perpetual one. You're always juggling efficiency, control, and agility, and you have to make sure the balance fits your strategy and your environment.
And no matter which structure you choose, from the most rigid to the most fluid, communication is everything.
It's the oil in the machine. A structure only works if people understand their roles and their authority. Confusion is the enemy of agility.
So to wrap this all up, here's a final provocative thought for you to consider, one that ties all these threads together.
Okay.
We talked about how government organizations, like the Bahrain Civil Service Bureau, are built on highly formalized, centralized, mechanistic structures. They're built for stability and consistency. But now, those very same organizations are being tasked with driving rapid, cutting-edge innovation.
A huge strategic shift.
So if that stable, rule-driven organization has to suddenly adopt an innovation strategy to stay relevant, how quickly can that mechanistic structure truly become organic before it just breaks? And more specifically, which of those building blocks, formalization, centralization, or span of control, do you think has to be relaxed first?
What's the first lever you have to pull to unlock that speed and flexibility?
Think about that tension between stability and speed the next time you look at any organization. We've given you the tools to figure out the why. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.